Stock market continues to rip higher with no end in sight of this current bull run. I'm going to be asking the question, how long can this continue for, and how am I positioning my portfolio over the next few days and weeks? I'm also going to be talking about the CPI number, which is going to be released for December tomorrow. How am I preparing for this? And I'm also going to show you some stocks that I think are worth having on your watch list right now, some stocks that I've personally either started to position into or have been positioning into or want to get positioned into potentially this week. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please do carry on watching and let's jump into it. So this is the chart of the S&P, and I've been talking a fair bit about this chart on previous videos in terms of my expectation. I've actually shared a post today on X as well, just showing the next couple of months of my base case in terms of my expected path for the index. The S&P, I think, is likely to push up to 7,000 and beyond that 7,000 level over the next couple of weeks, probably going into February, potentially some volatility and some small pullback in February, but I do think we can push on throughout Q1 before a deeper correction into Q2 in potentially in March, sort of April time. So obviously, if we as we start to push out further from this, it becomes less and less certain. But certainly for now, it seems to be pretty clear to me that Trump wants to pump the markets higher, is prepared to do whatever it takes. We've had talks about credit card companies not being able to charge more than 10% interest. We've got all these talks about these tax rebates now for US citizens of maybe $1,000, maybe even as high as $2,000 per person. These are real numbers, and this is real liquidity that's going to come into this market and push it higher over the next few months. He definitely wants to get the stock market as high as possible ahead of the November midterm elections. And obviously starting to put Jerome Powell under some pressure as well, opening up a criminal case against Powell to seemingly try and influence him and force his hand to either cut rates, or if he's not going to cut rates, to try and get him out of the Fed. I know he's going to be stepping down as Fed chair in May, I believe, but it is expected that he will stay within the Federal Reserve on the board, still being able to vote. And I think Trump really wants to see the back of him and obviously change the direction of the Federal Reserve completely to get rates as low as possible. For the end of the year, for these midterm elections, which will obviously benefit the stock market and risk assets. So that is what we're looking at. Obviously, we've got CPI that is coming out later on this week, actually tomorrow now. So we've got it as, let's see, this is the latest release. But if we actually look at see if we can get the CPI forecast for tomorrow. I don't actually think it's going to give me the forecast. Here we go. It's down here. So we've actually got the forecast at 2.7%. Obviously, previous was 2.7%. So obviously, if this comes in any lower than 2.7%, then you can expect the stock market to definitely get a bid. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a soft inflation figure, that the S&P does hit that 7,000 level, potentially starting to rally up further. Obviously, the Nasdaq, I've been talking a lot about this sort of wedge pattern that we've had forming here, where we were coming down and testing support. I think it's probably easier to see this on the daily. And we've been coming and testing support and kept on also testing resistance. And I've talked about my expectation for this to actually break out to the upside. And certainly when we get above this 25,800 level, to get acceleration towards all-time highs. We've actually seen that today. We are closing what looks like today's candle. Certainly on the cash close, we would have already closed it. But on a futures contract, which this is a CFD contract, you can see it looks like we're going to close the CFD as well above that key level. And that is really, in my opinion, just going to lead to further acceleration to the upside for the Nasdaq. So The S&P is looking very strong. Obviously, new all-time highs again today. The Nasdaq starting to break out of this consolidation to the upside. This is exactly what I've been talking about in the last few videos. As early as this morning, I've been talking about these two levels and obviously the expectation that stocks will continue to the upside, and that is what's happening. So obviously, as we move further out, obviously it is more difficult to predict what's going to happen over the course of an entire year, but certainly over the next few weeks, I expect stocks to remain strong and for us to get some continuation to the upside. And that is obviously really what I've been calling for over the last sort of month since I've started making more regular videos again. So it's good to see that playing out. Obviously, I was talking a bit about yields as well and wanting to see yields start to top out here and start to come down. So you can see we did have a red week last week. We popped back up to around about the 4.2 on the 10-year yield. So let's see if that yield does start to come down, potentially with a soft inflation print. The market will start to interpret that as softer inflation. So potentially opening the door up for rate cuts. Of course, rate hikes were seen when inflation was rising to obviously curb inflation. But if inflation starts to come down, there's less of an argument for higher rates. So that might put some pressure on the Fed to lower rates. And certainly the timing of this is really interesting of this criminal case against Jerome Powell, because it's literally all come out the day before the CPI. If CPI does come in soft, that is going to put more pressure on the Federal Reserve to cut rates. And obviously, it's not going to reflect overly well on Jerome Powell, who surely should be thinking about cutting rates if the inflation numbers are starting to come down. So that could be a figure that Trump knows about or somebody knows about that potentially could be sort of timing this to obviously undermine what the Fed are currently doing. So it's just interesting, obviously, the politics involved, but obviously I try and keep out of that here and obviously analyze what we want to in front of us, which is price, and look at ways that we can capitalize on price. It's interesting to also see Bitcoin has started to tick up. So obviously, I did a video this morning about Bitcoin, more heavily about Bitcoin, and obviously talked about the fact that we could get one more sweep, but I was expecting us still to potentially get this push up to around the 104 level, potentially coming in here to test one more time, or just starting to take off from these levels that we're at right now. So yes, good to see us pushing up again. But again, sellers have stepped in on lower time frames. We've got up to 92. We started to sell off back down to 91. So still very, very choppy on the Bitcoin chart. But certainly, if we do get a soft inflation number tomorrow, that could be the catalyst to actually send Bitcoin higher along with the stock market, get that yield dropping. Obviously, gold and silver would also probably do well as well, as it would put some pressure on the DXY, which had been on a bit of a recovery bounce, but is topping currently on a Tom DeMark 9 candles. So obviously a 9 sell on the daily Tom DeMark, and therefore it's looking like we've got a bearish engulfing too. So is that the market starting to anticipate a soft inflation number coming out and some weakness for the dollar, and obviously, some strength for risk assets again? Obviously, Bitcoin starting to get that move today. So I wanted to go through a few stocks with you, and I've highlighted a number of stocks that I'm actually looking to buy myself at the moment. So the first one that I want to review is Tesla. Tesla, I have talked about last week. I did a stocks update, and I did actually mention that if Tesla came into this zone, into this box where you can see plenty of levels of support here. We've got this white MA, which is our 100-day MA. We've got the 50, which is the red MA here, the 50-day MA. We've also got these ascending trend lines as well, going back quite some way, going back to the lows from last year in one instance. And then we've got, what else have we got going on here? We've also got the underside of this channel. It looks like price could be in. So if we got all the way down to 400, that would really be my line in the sand. I'd want to see price bounce on Tesla from there. But yeah, Tesla starting to turn around nicely. We've also got a Tom DeMark daily buy. So, and we've come into the 618. So you can see there's multiple levels of support coming in here. And obviously, if Tesla is to be bullish and is to break out to higher targets, obviously the main target I've got for this is 657, which will be our Fibonacci extension from the sort of previous swing high to swing low. This is sort of late 24 swing high to the 2025 swing low. Then potentially this is where you want to see price start to hold and make a move higher. And you can also see this is starting to form a bit of a cup and handle, albeit we've started to come down once again. So it's a cup with two handles, I guess. But let's see if we can get a move onto the upside. Certainly, if we can break above 500 convincingly and get above this resistance here, this actual sort of resistance line that we've got, sort of going back to the previous couple of all-time highs for Tesla, then yeah, a break above 520, we should come up towards 600 and potentially all the way up to the 650s. So that's what I'm looking at on Tesla. That's the first stock that I have been picking up and that I am interested in picking up some more. Certainly if we start to come back into that box, but we're out of it for now. Meta's another one I've talked about, and I think Meta would be an excellent buy on this essentially trend line here. So this trend line is coming all the way back to the 2022 lows, and obviously it connects the lows from last year, early last year, and sort of late last year. And certainly, Meta is a big company, one of the top Mag 7 stocks. Obviously, big AI narrative, big hyperscaler narrative, and I would not be surprised if Meta trades at new all-time highs later on this year. So they're two stocks that I have my eyes on. Obviously, larger cap stocks that I have my eyes on. Another one here is AMD. So I think AMD certainly has the potential to really get an explosive move on. It's obviously been a bit overlooked in the chip space, sort of being outshone by Nvidia over the last few years. But I do think that if AMD was to come down between sort of this 172 and as low as sort of this 158, I do think it would be a really good point to pick some up. Obviously, looking to come down and start to fill in and potentially close this gap. But that might not happen. It might just turn around from here and attack all-time highs. So it is one that I am viewing at the moment. Obviously, the fact that at the moment it is on a fair pullback. I mean, it's over 22% pullback at the current price from the all-time high. That does lead me to believe that there could be some potential upside from these levels for AMD. But obviously, if we pull back further, um, say for example, we come down and test these sort of weekly MAs, that's the 50 and the 100 MA, that's going to be a 40% drop. I'd be absolutely all over AMD if we actually saw that pullback. So it's more so one that I'm monitoring here. Obviously, full disclosure, I am long already AMD from earlier on last year, but it would be nice to see if we can get another dip. I think that would be a great buying opportunity. It's worth mentioning Amazon as well. It looks like Amazon at some point is about to rip to new all-time highs. Really strong looking chart. One of the best charts in the Mag 7, in my opinion, at this current moment in time. But obviously, if you're not in this position, you really need to wait for a pullback to get yourself long. And then we've got some smaller names down here. So we've got a couple of the sort of alternative energy plays. So you've got Oklo here that I think really has a decent opportunity of running back to all-time highs at some point this year. I was looking to get long around about 71. I did manage to get some buys in around this level. Let's see if we come back down for making a sort of higher low. See if we can get maybe a move back down into the 70s or low 80s. I think that would be a fantastic buy on Oklo, as I think it'll be a big narrative this year. Obviously, new scale power as well, another sort of AI power generator, nuclear power generator play, smaller market cap than Oklo, and it's come into a weekly Tom DeMark buy at its 200-week moving average. I mean, as far as sort of buy setups go on stocks you like, it doesn't really get much better than that. And I think what I'm personally looking for is to see if we actually can come down and close this gap. The gap fill would be around about 16.29, and I'm actually just going to put that on there for myself, and I'm going to put one of my sort of boxes on here as well. That would be the gap that we'd like to see filled, and I would definitely be adding to my long positions should we get anything close to the sort of the 17s, 16s. I think that would be a good area to accumulate some. Zscaler is one I've started to pick up just now. Weekly Tom DeMark 9 as well. It's not quite at its 200-week moving average, but if we do sort of wick down there and wick down to this trend line around about $200, I think will be a great entry for Zscaler. Obviously, this is more to do with cybersecurity. So another growth area that I think will perform over the next year. We've got Marvell as well, so another semiconductor stock, and an alternative really to Nvidia as the AI and as the bull market really starts to broaden, then I think we'll see some of these other semis start to run. And Marvell seems to have a piece of everything, seems to be very, very well connected and integral in a lot of the big AI infrastructure projects at the moment. So I think that is one to have on your watch list, and I don't think it's a bad entry here. We've got Lithium Americas Corp as well. So obviously this really exploded when sort of electric cars were coming out and all the rage and all the thing. Since it's died right off. But I think as we see this new Trump administration look to actually push some of the uh, sort of material uh, industry back onshore to the US, I think Lithium Americas Corp could be a beneficiary of that. I know I've mentioned like USAR as well, USA Rare Earth, that I think could get a strong run to the upside again. There's MP Materials as well, which looks like it's come down, seems to have double bottomed, seems to want to push a bit higher from here and potentially attack all-time highs again at some point this year. So that'd be a nice 2x from the 50 handle all the way up to 100. So pretty decent if you're able to buy there. Obviously, I'd be looking for some sort of dip, maybe down around the 60 mark or into the 50s to actually load up any more myself. We've got a couple of different ones here. So this is Occidental Petroleum. So I said on my video this morning, I do think the oil price has likely bottomed out, and I do think for that reason that some of these oil or energy stocks will be good plays going forward. And just to give you an idea of where we are at with Occidental Petroleum, I mean, we could really, really get a move onto the upside here. I mean, if this gets above the sort of 49 level and can start to pull towards this trend line and actually break out from this trend line, which I think this year it can do, then potentially we could see a really, really nice move in Occidental Petroleum up to the 100 mark and potentially higher, which would obviously be more than a 2x from these levels. So I'm not saying all that has to happen this year. Maybe that takes a couple of years to play out, but I do think this is a nice entry here. Obviously, we've had a nice retracement after the COVID oil price collapse when this thing got absolutely hammered. It's come down to the 618. It's currently around the 50% level. If we can get above there and get some momentum going to the upside, I think Occidental Petroleum will look very, very good going forward. We've got Nikon here as well, which is a bit of a recovery play. So just really waiting to see whether Nike can take out this descending trend line. Obviously, a weekly or monthly close, more so a monthly close, I'd say, but even a weekly close just above this trend line should see acceleration to the upside. So that's one I'm looking at. We've got a robotics pick as well. So this is Rich Tech Robotics. To me, this chart looks really good. We've got expansion, we've got the retracement, we've got consolidation before expansion, retracement, consolidation. So The next thing I'll be looking to see, probably after a little bit more consolidation, will be expansion up to this trend line. I think, look, from these prices, we're just below $4. This trend line is going to be above $8 the next time price runs up here, if it runs up here and hits that. So you can see the risk reward. Obviously, probably want to cut this if it comes below the low here at around about 2.8. So that's a decent risk reward. You're sort of risking one to make about sort of four or more than four on the upside. So that's a solid trade that I'm in myself. And just the final couple to look at on this list. So we've got Devon Energy as well. So similar to Occidental Petroleum, you can see a similar pattern, like a descending trend line. I think that we can get up here at some point this year. And obviously, by the time that happens, with the momentum, potentially that third test can lead to a breakout to much higher prices. Obviously, all of this is coming off the back of the Venezuela news and the fact that the US administration is looking to develop Venezuelan oil. So potentially these could be companies that could be involved in some of that process. And we've got ANET here, so another sort of electronics company that I think looks interesting at this level. We're actually starting to sort of come back and test some of these gaps and some of these highs here, and potentially this can turn around and run to the upside. So this is one I'm watching fairly closely. So I mean, that's it. You can see this is pretty much my watch list here, and a lot of these stocks I'm invested in myself. Full disclosure. I mean, one I did get into last month was this UAMI, so United States Antimony and Antimony Corporation. Antimony Corporation. I can't even say it. And it's just blasted. I mean, it's up over a 2x from where I was accumulating it last month. So, I don't really want to share things like this with you. I was actually waiting for this to come down to a lower price, sub sort of $4 to into this sort of big support area. So maybe it still does. Maybe it still comes down here, and there is an opportunity at around the $4 mark. But that's it. When they've moved like this, you can't really chase them. So you just have to keep these things on a watch list, keep your eye on them. And obviously, if this just takes off to the moon, then it'll be time to just let it run, probably skim some profits on the way up. But if it does come down, then there could be a buying opportunity. And obviously, I'll be sharing that with you. Also, the data centers. So it looks like the data centers have bottomed here. We have hit key support, and these are starting to turn around quite nicely. We've got CoreWeave and the other two that I have spoken about before. If I can find them on my list, where are you? Is NBIS. So also strong recovery here, hopefully going to make its way back up to this descending trend line and then break through it and attack new all-time highs. And IREN as well. IREN now trading above $50. I was buying it down at, this level down here. I actually wanted it to come down a bit lower. I got front run on most of my buys. It didn't quite come down and hit 32.5. It came down to 33.5. So yes, markets have a habit of obviously front running buys, and that is a sign of strength in itself. So yeah, this looks like it wants to push higher. I think another close above $50 here on a weekly, and yeah, I can really see this starting to run higher, initially up to around the 60 mark, and then attacking new all-time highs. So I'll just come off share and wrap it up then. So that is the update. Obviously, I've shared a number of stocks there that I'm looking at buying or that I'm thinking about accumulating over the next few days. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. So please do your own research and definitely don't just listen to somebody that you don't know on the internet for financial advice. But obviously, I'm just sharing what I'm doing with my capital. Obviously, if there's other stocks you'd like me to share that you'd like me to review on these videos, please do drop them in the comments down below, and I will catch you all on the next one. Bye for now.